Hi, guys. So, welcome to Tickers, the new series on the Limitless podcast where we discuss listed companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I'm Matthew Preston.
And I'm Thaon Simms.
And today we'll be talking about EduFocal, ticker as Learn.
And Regency Petroleum, ticker as RPL.
But before we get into the video, we'd love if you guys could subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. It really means a lot to us. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. But without further ado, let's get into it, Dan. So I'll probably go first. I'll start with EduFocal. So I'm going to share my...
Why did we choose these companies?
So, you guys can actually pick which company. So I can share my screen. So, but there'll be a link.
What we should do is, leave the link in the description. So it's a new series that we're doing where, if you guys just send in what companies, whatever requests you have, we'll talk about those stocks. So Preston will drop the link in the description.
So you guys can see here, these were actually the largest companies here. You can see Learn and RPL. So these were the stocks that you guys picked. After this episode, we'll send out a new link and you guys can pick a new set of stocks for us to review. And we can get into it. So, EduFocal, otherwise known as Learn, they are an edtech company. They listed early 2022. I think the exact listing date was like sometime in March 2022. And essentially their whole premise is that they can help teach you how to learn things. So they have what they call two segments of the business. There's EduFocal Learn, and then there's EduFocal Business, right? The EduFocal Business, what it sounds like, they cater towards businesses. So say you're a company and you're like, hey, I want to teach my workers, I want to do this course or something like that. EduFocal can help with that. And then EduFocal Learn side has some other aspects. So it's not really to cater toward businesses, but it is catered towards, like, for example, students. So, for example, one of the arms that they have a nursing academy. Specifically, I think it was called a VHSI Nursing Academy. And it was to help teach some nurses. It was like an after school for nurses, what I found out. And apparently they've taught over like 1,000 nurses since 2022. So that was one of the things. Then there was EduFocal Amigo, which is something that was kind of new. I think they were working on it late 2023. And essentially it was like a teacher assistant platform that they said could help teachers. It was supposed to be specifically for Africa, because that's one of the areas that they are expanding into, or one of the countries they're expanding into. It would help teachers create, administer, and grade tests. So it was like a teacher test assistant platform. I guess Amigo for like friend. It's the friend of the teacher. They also had what they call like a learning lab, which was essentially like a subscription that you could pay as a student. The price I saw on the website was 2,500 Jamaican dollars per month, and we give you access to like quizzes and videos for PEP. So this would be for grade 4 and grade 6 students. So almost like, I guess, like after extra lessons kind of thing for people like that. And I'm sure like a lot of us, extra lessons were really popular. And I don't know if, I guess they're still as popular. They probably still are, but like in grade 4 prep school, primary school, that was really popular. They also have the abilities extras, which was like a boot camp. It was last 6 weeks, and then it would be every Saturday, and the teachers would go through questions with the students, and it was still more like PEP and things like that. So prep and primary school. And then they also had the EduFocal Academy, which was a full-time. It was like a full-time school, but it was online. So instead of going to, Vast Prep or any of those schools, you could actually go to EduFocal Academy. But they actually closed down that division around the middle of last year, June 2023, because it was making losses at the time. So that's the EduFocal Learn side. So that's their education, but not for businesses. And then there's the EduFocal Business. And then the two parts that I saw about this, there was Clever School Teacher. So essentially, it was a bit weird, because I guess it kind of is Learn, but it was a company that they actually bought not long after listing. They bought March 2022, and It was in the US, and essentially, say I'm like a kindergarten teacher and I want to teach my students, there's certain pieces of information, like say there's tests or there's activities that I want to do with the students. Clever School Teacher was essentially a supplier of that content that you would need as a kindergarten teacher. So they had they had different assets and things like that, and EduFocal actually bought them early 2022. Then there's SVL, software as a service
software
company,
as a service. Okay.
And then SVL University, which is a partnership they did early this year. It was February this year, where essentially SVL, Supreme Ventures Limited, the gambling company in Jamaica, they have lots of different employees, but then they wanted to upskill their employees. They wanted to give them courses and give them opportunities for learning. So EduFocal said, hey, we have this access, we have this, we have these banks, we have this information that we can help set up these courses to teach your workers, and then the workers can actually even get certificates for it to say, okay, I completed this course. So this was something that was more recently. We haven't really been able to see the impact of something like this on EduFocal yet, but that was something I guess that was pretty interesting. The SVL University, and I guess technically it's something that they could expand to other businesses. It's not. It makes sense when we'll get into the shareholders and stuff, why maybe SVL will be a partner, but maybe it could be Alaska University, it could be a, you know.
I mean, don't they do things like that now with other companies, or they have something with? Is it a partnership with BCIC? No, it's with they certify, PPVs. So basically, I think it's anybody who I remember reading this a long time ago. But if you have to renew your license as a PPV, as a the drivers that red plates, basically, red plates like taxis or people who drive certain buses, like maybe Juta buses or so on. They are the ones that I don't know if it's training or certify. I think it's probably both, and they have a contract with that. So they're the only ones, I believe, or they are the ones that deal with that, basically, either training and certifying those type of people. So
I've seen an article. It's actually recent, April this year, April 2024. Let's see, it said a PPV driver training program is delivered on a zero rated web-based application designed by EduFocal. Oh, part sponsored by BCIC.
There we go. I think I read that somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's another business line for them. So it's interesting how they have B2C and B2B, and they could scale this tremendously from what I'm seeing, because I mean everyone wants to do online certifications and so on. Maybe they could have partnerships with Heart. Maybe they could have partnerships with other educational companies and so on. But yeah, I think a lot of this could scale significantly. Imagine having certifications for us as doctors.
So is it that, like, how like we would take the road test or the written part? Is it that's essentially what EduFocal can do?
Good question. I need to look it up. But there's a lot more. I remember seeing it with. There's a lot more. It was a lot more for. There are other articles. I know see one here. Or today, if you look it up, January 2. Online training app for PPV operators. You can probably find it.
See it here. Right. This is. You can put in your TRN and your receipt number. Start learning. So how to sign up, be a part of the purchase badge, sign in, study online. Interesting.
And see, it says the recently launched online training application for PPV, or public passenger vehicle operators, Transport Authority PPV driver train. That's what it's called. Will be made available to approximately 82,000 operators in the PPV sector. right, as well as in the commercial sector. So there's a huge amount of clients, and I mean, imagine now if this scale beyond a lot of that it's Uber drivers or rideshare. I mean, we know a lot of those ride sharing apps got banned recently, but there's a lot of synergies that can go on with the government, that can happen between the government and EduFocal, if they want to have an online platform to authorize a lot of these individuals. Because, I mean, safety is a huge issue right now in that whole ride sharing space. And Daryl Vaz, who is, I guess, the head, he's a minister of transport, but he's the one that came out and said in Parliament and banned a lot of these apps. So I think a partnership with EduFocal could go a long way in either helping to authorize certain drivers, helping to certify them. There's a lot that can be done through EduFocal's platform as well. So just a thought.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess yeah. Where were we next? So that was some of the stuff about EduFocal. Thanks for that point. So that's kind of how they make money. They have the learn and the business side. Then the next aspect of learn I was looking at would be like the ecosystem, like what's going on around the company. So for example, I found some interesting statistics. So they're, I guess, slightly outdated. It's 2024 now. This was 2021. Do you know that there was a report done in 2021 that said a third of students at the end of primary school in Jamaica can't read? They said 56%, a third, apparently they're saying at the end of primary school can't read. That's 33%. Then they said 56%, that's more than half, the majority, can't write. And 57% can't identify information in a simple sentence. This was from it's called the Patterson's report. It was this document here. If anyone wants, I can share the reform of. So, I found this quite some interesting statistics from here. And then they also said
the CEO, Gordon Swaby, he said some of this in a previous interview. I'm not sure if it was a Mayberry Investor Forum, but I mean it's. I want to say it's believable. On one hand it is, on one hand it isn't, because those are staggering numbers, absolutely staggering numbers. I think COVID played a huge impact. I mean, that's 2021 numbers as you're showing. Yeah. This was probably a year after the pandemic started. So, I mean, who knows what the fallout is with COVID, because during that time, no one was in school. A lot of people may not have had access to internet. We're very tech illiterate. I'm not sure if that's the phrase. We don't have a lot of people don't have access to a lot of technology, maybe even Wi-Fi or so on. There's some places that don't even have running water in Jamaica. So in order to have like a tablet or a laptop and to have Wi-Fi and electricity and all of those things, a lot of people could feel the fallout from COVID-19. So then
there was another thing. It said 28% of students managed to pass 5 subjects in a single sitting for CSEC. And remember, a pass is a 3 at CSEC, right? So only 28%. So they're saying the majority of students at the high school level were not able to pass or get at least 5 3s their first time or in a single sitting.
Wow.
So essentially Jamaica does have a big issue with, well, I don't think it's just Jamaica alone, but Jamaica and other developing countries with the same things you mentioned. Some places don't have as much internet penetration. We are like, our infrastructure in terms of, like, think about it in terms of getting 3G, 4G speeds, things like that. There's some places that just aren't going to get service and things like that. So and it's tough now too, because with the developments in, you know, large language models, artificial intelligence is going to be a lot more. It's interesting because it'll be a lot more readily available, but then
it's harder to
the
measure.
thing is, no, not even just saying that. I'm just saying it's right now it's the people that are going to be more. Think about it. There's developing countries who say don't have enough. They're not getting schooled. We're not getting schooled as well as maybe somewhere else that has access to all the resources and things like that. The best teaching practices, internet, reliable internet. But then when you bring into AI, which is essentially a boost to intelligence, who is going to get more of the artificial intelligence? It's the same people who are already ahead, who had access to the internet, who had access to all of this information. So it's probably, it may actually worsen that gap. So
yeah,
with something like this, the government, for example, I think, well, I probably should check more into what I think the point of this report was that it was supposed to, you're supposed to be able to develop action points from it. I think it actually even had some suggestions about, yeah, so it said, for example, there's some points: enhanced coordination of support for children with disabilities, increased parent and community engagement. So the point was, okay, we have this issue, do the research, let's see how we can, you know, improve on it or stop this from getting any worse. So I do think EduFocal, for example, if the government realizes that it's important, it's just, will we be able to provide the level of funding that the industry needs, and how much of that will EduFocal be able to go after? That's interesting, because the thing is, the government contracts can be pretty huge, but the other issue is sometimes government can take a while to pay. So then you can have a lot of receivables or money you're supposed to receive, but then, you know, you're not like, it's just like your friend that say, yeah man, I'll pay you, but then, you know, they're incurring costs. So I think that's another issue too, because they spoke about it in the past. I don't remember, it was probably like a report or something that they said sometimes, you know, we do one of our big customers is the government, but then, you know, sometimes the government, you have to wait a while to get your money. But yeah, the point is the learning gap in Jamaica, in other developing countries, is huge.
Yeah, well, yes, it's not a feature that's, you know, unique to just Jamaica. I think also when we're talking about Jamaican government and the opportunities for EduFocal in terms of the educational sector, I think the CEO, Gordon Soebi, also spoke about how much money, and I remember seeing it too, it was a significant amount of money being spent by the Jamaican government in the education sector, right? In 2023-2024, the government actually allocated $142.9, almost $143 billion. That's billion Jamaican dollars just for education alone in that year. That's 22% of the non-debt.
Where does that money, does it give a breakdown of like, okay, how much goes, where is it, like how much is that included in like salaries and stuff like that, or infrastructure upgrades? Like it'd be nice.
What I will show you is, I'll send it to you in our Telegram chat, but that link, what I remember reading was most of it, I mean, it's I think it's less than 10% that actually goes into new ventures. So most of it is recurring expenses, you know, just upkeep of schools, you know, if we have to paint over this classroom or this area, or it's just general upkeep of schools. So it's not new ventures, it's not new projects, it's nothing.
You see my screen? So this is a budget review document this is the Jamaica 2023-2024. Oh wait, no, this is saying March 2023. Oops. Sure, this is, well, we can still look at it. So this was,
we can still look at it just
last
to see.
year. I thought there was one for I need to find. So that's the education and youth. So of the expenditure of the total $1 trillion we're spending, education and youth gets 146 billion. Let me see if it breaks down education anymore.
Well, in the JIS article, it said 9.3 billion goes towards school nutrition program, $7 billion for breakfast and cook lunch for Path program, right? It's there's increases in daily lunch rates and so on. So that's more expenditure. As inflation goes up, cost of goods goes up. All of those things goes. That's more. There's so much more that 2 billion set aside for books, educational material. 42 billion for Ministry of Finance and the Public Service for public sector pension payments. There's just like a lot of there are a lot of expenditures, and a lot of it is just not new. Like it's not we're not trying to build new schools. Maybe the government is, but there's not a lot of money allocated for that. So a chunk of government. Imagine you are the government of Jamaica. You make $1 trillion for argument's sake. Imagine most of the money, or the biggest slice of pizza is education, and then within that slice of pizza, just maybe 1/10 of it, or even less. I'm actually not sure what the numbers are, but we can look into it. Goes into new ventures, So imagine now you're in a Jamaica where we face all of these educational challenges. There's an educational crisis, in my opinion. Crisis. Because even if when you look into the numbers of how many, you said it, how many people are illiterate after primary school, that's a significant amount. How many men actually get into tertiary education? Not saying that tertiary education is the be-all, end-all. Not everybody needs a degree in nowadays society. But those numbers are also staggering. Preston, in our med class, do you remember how many, the ratio between guys and girls? Sometimes we'll be in rotations. I'm off-site, and it's maybe like 15 of us, and it's just 2 of us guys. I remember one time I went to St. Anne for certain rotations. It's just a couple of us. It was like 3 of us as guys, and everybody else is a girl, right? Imagine other faculties. I know there was a huge disparity between the male and female ratio, and I can't imagine what it is like now. So we have an educational crisis, and I think with all of that being said, tying it back into EduFocal, I think there's a huge opportunity for them to do good, and for the government to actually say, hey, here's this company that's actually trying. They have a platform. They have a lot of tools that can actually bolster and boost our educational sector. And so I think there are opportunities for a lot. So for some of that pie, a slice of that pie to actually go towards EduFocal. That was just my point.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing too is that, well, we mentioned that EduFocal, but remember that there's another listed company too, One-on-One. One-on-One listed, was it? I think it was the same 2022. I think a little
actually,
after
we did
EduFocal.
Did we talk to the CEO of One-on-One?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure we did.
An episode with Ricardo Allen. Yeah, we should. Can probably drop that in the description.
You guys should check that out. That was a great episode. Realize how brilliant Ricardo was in terms of financial knowledge. Just talking about derivatives and all those things and options. And
like, I think he was studying to be an actuary at one point or something. Like, he was really good at
Fulbright scholar. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I guess the question is like, both. How much of that pie, for example, do you think EduFocal might get versus One-on-One? I mean, I guess the whole thing is that I think the amount of money that is out there for that is pretty big. I don't really know much other larger players in the space. I think the largest ones that I know of are probably EduFocal and One-on-One right now. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who's going to come out in terms of getting more of those deals.
Yeah.
And in terms of the plans of EduFocal, they have a lot of different plans they laid out. One was that they are expanding to Africa. So I had mentioned the EduFocal Amigo, which was essentially that it was like the teacher companion to help with like test administration and marking and all of that. So they said that they wanted to apply that to Africa. and they actually set up 2 subsidiaries. So there was EduFocal Africa, and then below that, Nigeria, EduFocal Nigeria. And then they said that specifically, I think they were focusing on Lagos, Nigeria. So they're working on trying to expand into Africa. They, I think they actually even gave a timeline on when they thought the African initiatives were going to start coming in, like, to fruition. They said possibly late 2024 or into 2025. So I think that will be interesting. It's kind of tough because the fact that EduFocal is still like a pretty small company, and they're a tech company, so they have like a lot of expenses, especially when you're in like those initial growth stages. It's kind of hard for them to go after like a whole complete different, country. But the thing is that if you think about it, if they're able to do it, it's high risk and high reward, because if you look at like the population of Nigeria versus, for example, Jamaica, the population it's 2022 218 million. Jamaica is what, 3 mil?
Yeah, max.
So that's multitudes. That's just Nigeria, and they said they have EduFocal Africa and then Nigeria. So I don't think they're probably gonna maybe start in Nigeria, but then they also said they'll probably go into other areas of Africa. And Africa, just like Jamaica, does have a lot of the same issues that we kind of face in certain parts of Africa. They have educational gaps and things like that. So I do think it'll be interesting to see if they are able to really crack that. I don't know. I'd probably have to do more research to find out what other competitors are in Africa. I'm sure that EduFocal isn't the only one that's saying, "Hey, Africa has these issues.
Africa
let's help them."
Huge too. So even if we pick one country, I'm pretty sure there are a ton of competitors. There are a ton of countries in Africa. So yeah. The
other thing too, they said they had a Jamaica. Well, I guess this ended up working out, the Jamaica Library Service Partnership. So there are about 1,000, almost 1,400 libraries in Jamaica. A lot of them are school libraries. The majority are school libraries. But EduFocal essentially had set up a partnership that would allow the students to access EduFocal's content at the libraries. So instead of, say, for example, you're a student, you have a library near you that has internet and a computer and all of that stuff, but maybe at home you don't have the internet or a reliable computer and stuff like that. So then you could access. The point was that it was essentially like a big distribution network for EduFocal to say, hey, you can access our content here. And they also, I think, said that they would they'd have like a rep there that would then help. It's like, say there's a bag of kids on the computers and then they're not sure, like, oh, they're having an issue with this. It was almost like a rep would be there to help assist them to use their software. So they're learning platforms and all that stuff. You're supposed to be able to access it at the Jamaican libraries. Yeah. They also even mentioned at one point doing an equity raise overseas. There was an article. Yeah, he said he had said that it was a reason for them setting up the foreign subsidiaries. This was a quote from an Observer article July last year. So the objective is to allow the entities the opportunity to over time be able to raise capital from stock markets outside of Jamaica. But he said there were early days, but at some point they said that, hey, we may want to raise some more money, and maybe they even just want to do it in Jamaica, we want to do it in other areas. They even mentioned some acquisitions. So yeah, they did acquire Clever School Teacher that we mentioned, but they said there was an article where he said it was a regional company. They said we're looking to purchase a regionally focused company. Right. So getting back into CSEC, and also this possible acquisition would allow us to comfortably expand regionally. So they were looking to acquire a regional company. That was actually 2022 they said that. We haven't really got an update, I guess, since, but they said they want to acquire some more companies. I guess it would be interesting to see how they're able to finance that, though. And they also, I spoke about it before, they said they used to do CSEC apparently, but then they had stopped. But then they said that they were looking to get back into CSEC. Because right now they're really mainly doing PEP, which is like primary prep school. But they said that they want to get back into CSEC at some point too. So I think that could be interesting for them.
I need to
Yeah.
look into the potential companies that they could acquire. Because if it's a
Yeah.
company, if it that can you go back to that article, that quote that you said about the potential company? Was it CSEC related company?
He said the company
Regionally
that we're looking
focused,
to
yeah,
purchase is regionally focused. So getting back, I don't,
into
I don't think it's
CSEC.
necessarily saying that. I don't think it's necessarily saying that the company offers CSEC. The company does regional stuff. So I guess it could be a. Where you're saying to try to look up to guess which company it is that could be they were looking to buy.
Yeah.
Mm.
If the company primarily does, things with CSEC. And I guess that quote would be that's from an Observer article.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can probably do our homework just to see what companies fit that kind of description. Because if it's regional expansion and it's a CSEC company, there can't be too many. I doubt there are more than a handful of those kind of
I'm not
companies.
sure that it's saying the company is in CSET, though. It's saying the company we're looking to purchase is also very much regionally focused in its offerings. So getting back into CSEC and also this possible acquisition would allow us to expand.
I'd have to see the context with which he said that.
Yeah.
Because it says, so getting back into CSEC, and then he says, and also this possible acquisition. Like, that could also be something different. But usually with articles, a lot of people do misquote. So I would have to look back and see if the interview is public, what he actually was saying. But if it is CSEC companies, we could try and see which companies he's trying to acquire. Not sure what EduFocal is doing now. You want to give us an update on how they're kind of doing now?
Well, I was first going to go into the management or the ownership.
Or perfect.
So if you look at this is the. Well, maybe I should hold on. I should do it with this. One sec. So this was the most recent shareholder list for EduFocal. So you can say, okay, gosh, and that's essentially how Gordon Swaby owns his shares, as he owns 31% of the company. There's Wide Base Limited, which is essentially part of the Mayberry Group. They own 13%. Matrix Ventures, I think, is the chairman's holding company. But the point I was making is really the Wide Base Limited stake, if that's Mayberry. And then I was tying it back to the SVL University that we mentioned before. Mayberry is one of the largest shareholders in SVL. So it makes sense that they're like, hey, this company that we have a stake in terms of, education and learning, let's help them do it for us. So maybe at some point you may even see a Mayberry University where EduFocal is saying, hey, let's, help educate. It could be like a financial literacy course or a financial course. EduFocal could get into something like that. Yeah.
True.
And I like that the management owns shares. Because if Gosh is,
and he's majority
Gordon
shareholder,
Swaby, the CEO, Matrix Ventures is the chairman, I think. I should actually double check.
Yeah, because the chairman is Peter Levy.
Oh, hold on.
Who's right below. So I'm not sure who Matrix Ventures is.
I think it is him, though. Let me just double check. Matrix. Matrix Ventures. Oh no. Oops. My bad. Matrix Ventures is a company controlled by Mr. Paul Allen. He was the co-founder of EduFocal.
Ah, yes.
But yeah, so
he's the CTO now, no?
So two co-founders own significant shares. Chairman owns significant shares. So, yeah. They actually own parts of the company, so they have skin in the game. So if the share price goes up, they benefit. The share price go down, they also feel it too.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the trading now, so EduFocal, as I said, listed at $1. It did not trade at $1. I remember at that time people were scrambling to get shares.
Yeah.
I don't think this is right for the
That was
first
a great
day,
time.
though. Yeah, I mean, EduFocal hit a high. It's probably like $4 or so at the time.
Mm-hmm.
$4.06. Yeah.
I love how with My Money JA you can annotate.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
guys.
you can.
Guys, My Money JA is actually game changing. If you want, and you want to sign up, use code Limitless. All right, when you're signing up. You get a discount, and it really helps us out. But this is an amazing platform in terms of if you want to look at and analyze stocks, it's an all-in-one platform. And I guess as you watch a lot of our videos, you'll hear us talk about a lot of the features and so on. But this is a cool one, annotating your stocks. So yeah, go ahead, Preston.
But yeah, so it listed at $1. It's a high of $4. If you look, it's essentially been steadily trending down. They've been going through some tough times if you look at it. So in terms of the earnings, so the listed 2022, the revenues were essentially about flat. So 2021 they had 185 mil revenue, 2022 187. Up to the point that we saw for 2023, the revenues were actually trending up. But in terms of the profit now, the profits that 2022 was Q4, their quarter four, they took a big loss. If you look at that, like before, they're making measly profits, 10 mil, 8 mil, but 2022 they hit 178 mil loss. That's a heavy loss. So I think that's kind of why, part of why the share price hasn't been doing as well. They also have been having some delays. They've been having issues. I know 2022, I think they had a lot of delays with their
Reports.
Q4, but they were able to still release it. Yeah, see here. So you see, well, oh no, this is. Oh yes, this is it.
2023.
So the audited for the year ended 2022. The audited report was supposed to be released, and then they kept mentioning further delay. But they essentially, if you remember that, their so the last report they dropped was for their quarter three. Their quarter three, so there's 4 quarters in the year. Their quarter three ended September, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the quarter ends, well, they had released the quarter three numbers, no issues there. Their quarter four ends December 2023, or ended December 2023, and they opt. Did they choose? Do they choose to report Q4 separately than audited, or they chose to just do audited? Do you remember?
Actually not sure.
I'm trying to remember. I think they do audited. So a company that lists on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the rules say that if the quarter ends, whatever date the quarter ends, so for example, this example, we're saying December, the last day of December 2023, if you choose to report, you can either choose to report an unaudited report and then an audited, or just an audited report, right? So if you choose to report just the audited report, you have to release the audited report by 60 days after the quarter ends, right? So if it's ended end of December, and well, you could count, I guess, the exact days, but that'd be January, February. Well, end of February.
You said 60 days, end of February, yes.
Yeah, around 6. Well, I guess technically it would be, if it's a leap year or whatever, and then how many days. But yeah, just essentially it's generally about 60 days. Let's call it 2 months. So it'd be, you could work out specifically which day and whatever. But the point is, should have been due. Well, oh yeah, my man JA says it, that the report should have been released February 29th, 2024. Okay, it's 60
Uh-huh.
days after the last day in December. But then they essentially weren't able to do that process, and they were giving delays, and they were saying, okay, we're going to try to make it, but they weren't able to make it in time. So essentially the JSE had put out a notice saying that, hey, we're going to have to suspend the trading of the stock because the reports are overdue. And the thing is, their Q1 also is overdue because their Q1 was supposed to be, that'd be January, February, March. And then that would be the unaudited report. So that'd be 45 days after March. So if it's January, February, March, April, that'd be what, mid-May, that would have been due to. So that's why right now you actually can't buy EduFocal shares, can't buy or sell EduFocal shares. So the stock is suspended. So I think, if they're able to go through their process, release the report, the JSE would likely, or unsuspend them or allow them to be listed back on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Free up the shares.
Yeah, I mean, for now, and I think it'll be interesting because if you look at, let me show you something. If you look at, this is their financials. So Q1, Q2, Q3, these were the quarters last year, right? They were actually doing a lot better compared to the year before. So look at Q1, Q2, Q3. Q1 2022, 60 mil revenue. Q1 112 mil revenue. Q2, like, they had more revenues. And then in terms of profit, they were more profitable so far. It was just really their Q4 we were supposed to see. But that's the report that we haven't been able to see. Their Q4 last year was very bad.
Yeah.
They had, if you look at it, they had not that much revenue, 30 mil revenue. But there's a big thing I'm highlighting here. There was an impairment loss on a financial asset. This was a huge loss. You can see they lost over 100 mil on that. And they also didn't have They didn't have a profitable gross profit margin, or they didn't really have a gross profit margin, or negative gross profit margin, I guess. But this impairment loss on the financial asset was a really, really big hit for them. And the audited report actually does go through it. So a big part of that loss was, there's this part where it goes into note 12. It says, due from EduFocal Business Limited for 2022. You can see for 2021, the EduFocal Business Limited, which is, the business side of EduFocal, they'll cater towards SBL University, those stuff. EduFocal, the company, essentially, the EduFocal business owed EduFocal 49 mil, or just call that 50 mil, right? But then there's this other line here, less expected credit loss provision, which is essentially like saying, okay, say Thaon was to lend me money, and say it's been taken out, Thaon was supposed to pay me back, last month some money, and I'm like, okay, pay me back my money. He's like, no, I can't pay you. He's like, I'll pay you next month. And then it keeps pushing it back. It looks like, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you that money. Essentially,
you write it off.
Yeah, it's like, my understanding of expected credit losses, it's like, okay, if you have, say, a loan, the same thing, like even loan companies like, for example, Dollar Financial Access, those microfinance companies, they have a portion that they report as expected credit loss. So it's like a portion of, say, a loan that, or some debt that, it's, if you don't think, if it doesn't look like you're going to get the money back, you have to book that as an expected credit loss. So, for example, banks, I remember when COVID had first hit, and, a lot of people were laid off and a lot of businesses were closed down. A lot of the banks in Jamaica, or just, I guess, worldwide, they had a big expected credit loss. Because credit is like debt or a loan, and then we expect to lose some money on this credit that we gave out. But if you notice, 2021, they didn't have any expected credit loss to EduFocal business. But look at 2022, of the 106 mil that they were to get from EduFocal business, essentially all of that had to be written off as an expected credit loss. We expect to lose money on this. And that was a huge thing for them. So
it's usually over 90 days, I think, where you start.
Oh.
So there are different calculations based on the delay of, repayment. But I think once it's over 90 days, a lot of companies kind of write it off. So it's not like they can't get back the money, but you just have to, based on accounting rules, you kind of just have to write it off. So that's that loss.
Yeah, so that was a huge loss for them. If you look at it, I mean, they still would have been, they wouldn't have made a profit that quarter, but it wouldn't have been this huge loss that they experienced. I want to see what Q4 could be, because the thing is, you mentioned that if EduFocal had continued on this path and their Q4 had been decent, it would have been a record year for them.
Yep.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I compare 2020, 10.9 mil profit, 2021, 8.7 mil profit. Then this, look at that. For the whole year 2021, they made 8.7 mil in profit. For Q3 2023 alone, which was a bad quarter for them, they made 8.8 mil profit. What about Q1 2023, 42 mil profit? That could have been a banger year for them. But I don't know if it's that something similar to like what happened in Q4 2022 is going to happen for 2023, but we will have to wait to see.
Yeah.
We will have to wait to see. Maybe what we can do is eventually do like an upgrade or update video. If more information comes out, let us know
when the report
in the comments
comes out
below if you guys would like that.
I personally would love that still. I think we should do it when the reports come out. Because we still need to see Q4 and Q1.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
True.
EduFocal, a lot more to come. Not a dead company at all. And I think they're quite needed in the space. So
yeah,
the funny thing about stocks, the funny thing about stocks is I love stocks like this, like stocks that are making heavy losses, there's negative market sentiment. Stocks that are suspended.
But negative market sentiment is different than suspended, yo.
Bro, still, I don't mind because, well, I mean, they're kind of the same. Once you get suspended, there's a negative sentiment. That one just starts before the other. Or it could be one leading to the other. But at the same time, if the market's looking on it negatively, it will have its day. I personally believe that EduFocal will have its. I mean, look at we could see it. It's been profitable those past 3 quarters. So I think they're on a decent trajectory. It just all depends on how these next reports look, because it's been a while since we've seen like reports. So let's just see. Let's see where Gordon takes the company. Yeah. Excellent.
The other thing is that,
that any? Oh, go ahead.
What I worry about is that you notice. So they had outlined this. Last year, October, they put out an announcement saying that they wanted to do a stock split and a rights issue. This is October 30th, right? And the rights issue in a way I get maybe why they may have wanted to do one, because if you look at, like, say for example for 2022, you see my screen, December 2022, EduFocal, this is a cash flow statement. You see this line, let me zoom in, net cash provided or used in operating activities, right? And then if it's in brackets, it's used. EduFocal for December 2022, or for that,
if it's in brackets, it's
cash
used,
versus cash generated from the operations. They had to spend 100 million in cash, right?
Yeah.
Like they had to, and for example, like a big part of that, receivables. Essentially the business is very cash intensive, right? 100 mil, and I think they borrowed 200 mil from Mayberry. Just for this period, they used off essentially half of that money. They need a lot of cash. And even though it started looking better up to September 2023, because their operations were providing cash. The tough part is that for some of these plans that they want to lay out, that's going to require a lot of money, a lot of cash. But then this is their most recent cash at the bank. They have 19 mil in cash, right? So I'm wondering if they'll really be able to finance their expansion plans. And I see that they said they wanted to the rights issue. So if they have too much debt, so you can raise money, debt or equity. If you have too much debt, you may then want to do some equity for part of it. But the thing is, the equity, you can come from your shareholders or non-shareholders. But the thing is that if the share price is below the IPO price, right, which was $1, before it got suspended, it was like 80 cents or so. Do you think that people are going to want to put money, like say they need, and I don't think they can just say raise 100 mil. It's not even just incentive. It's like just, I think for equity raise, shareholders or prospective investors want to see some return. Like they want to say, okay, the business is profitable, they're generating cash.
That's the same thing.
You mentioned about the suspended.
Yeah.
I don't see it as the same, because incentive you could say, oh, it's a discount to the market price, but it's just or like people IPO want to have like confidence, or people want to have confidence, and they can say, oh, it's like something like NCB did their IPO. NCB has been around for like 150 a long time. They're the largest bank in Jamaica. They've been around for like 50 plus years. They tried to raise $5 to $7.5 billion. They raised up an amount of money, which was good. They raised $2.5 billion. I think $2.5 billion, but essentially they raised a lot less than they wanted, and that was NCB with that track record, profitable. They're paying out dividends. So my worry is that the amount of money EduFocal probably needs to be able to fund all of these, plans and things like that. Are they going to be able to get that? And they also have debt too. And they have debt. Yeah, they have debt. So they have I'm looking here, September 2023, they have long-term borrowings of 174 mil, right? So my thing is, I'm wondering what they're going to do now, because to me, the rights issue likely won't happen. Yeah. And if they can't,
and equity, I mean, if it does, what's it going to be? So for me, if you're doing a raise and you want my money, I have to see value in it. If you're doing the raise a lot of people do raises to pay off debts, right? IPOs are used a lot to pay off debts. Last couple of IPOs were done to pay off debts too, like One Great Studio, etc. Right? But you borrowed this money from Mayberry, and you can see that a lot of it kind of burn up. Now, is it really burn up? Not really, right? It's 200 million borrow, and you see the last major loss was over 100 mil. Fair if it was due to e-sales and so on, but it's just the confidence from investors. Like, you borrowed money before, what have you done with it? And then now you're asking investors for money. It's a harder sell. It's a much harder sell to investors. It's an uphill battle. It is an uphill battle.
It's gonna be a tough road for them. I don't think they may not be out. I think Gordon can do it, but it's gonna be a lot of work for him right now, man. A lot of work.
Yeah.
I hope he's up to the challenge.
Yeah. Gordon, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Just putting that out there. Just like any CEO, we'd love to have them on the podcast. And we can just sit down.
If there's a CEO you guys want us to have on the podcast, drop it in the comments below. We'll try to reach out to them.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to talk about? We spoke about the stock split rights issue approval. I feel like that's comprehensive enough for EduFocal, because I kind of want to get into RPL, and We've been, this video has been going on for a long time. This is much longer than I thought we'd do for tickers. And that's just one company. But let's dive right into RPL. Now, what I will say is my things are not as organized as Preston. I came up with no presentation. Didn't realize we were doing presentations.
Learn from Julian.
Yeah, true. Big up Dr. Doom. However, let's just talk. I kind of just like to just have a free-flowing conversation. And we're talking about Regency Petroleum Limited, Company Limited, Regency Petroleum Company Limited. Yes.